Good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Buy Now, Sell Now on ET Now. My name is Alex Matthew and with me is Cheryl D'Souza. It's looking like a good start to trade. In fact, it's been a couple of hours of good trade for the equity markets in India. And this is in line with what we've seen across the board. There's a risk on trade that is on globally. As we stand, the Nifty 50 trading higher by as much as 0.4% or a little over 0.3%, hitting the 16,685 mark and within touching distance of 16,700. That's the next level to look at. The broader markets are more or less keeping pace. You have the mid-cap index that's gaining about 0.5%, and you have the small-cap index that is just about 1% or so higher. They've given up a tad bit of the early gains that they have had achieved. In fact, the small cap index was over 1% higher in early trade. So just a tad bit of profit taking perhaps after the kind of momentum that we've seen so far this week. A look at some of the names that are in focus. You have the likes of Tata Motors right on the top. HDFC Life gaining the most in as many as 6 months, is doing quite well. Nestle is looking good. Hindalco, and then you have quite a few of the IT names that are doing quite well in trade, among them TCS, which is gaining quite strongly. You have a few FMCG names that are also doing particularly well. I mentioned Nestle, but there's also Britannia Industries that's doing quite well. Among the losers though, and there aren't too many to speak of, and those that are losing are not losing a large amount, but you have the pharma names that are doing not too well in trade today. So Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, one of the biggest laggards in trade today, down as much as 1.3%. Titan losing about 1.1%. Bharti Airtel also more than 1% lower. And then you have the likes of Bajaj Finserv, which by the way we're going to be speaking about in more detail today. It's cooling off just a tad bit after the stellar run that it had yesterday. But those are more or less the stocks that we're looking at. Cheryl, I'm going to hand it over to you. What are the stocks that you're looking at in terms of being in the news and being active? Good morning to you.
Good morning, Alex. And a couple of stocks that are actually pretty active on back of news flows in today's trading session. And first up, I'll talk about Fortis. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala has hiked his stake in Fortis Healthcare to over 5%. So that on back of that, you have Fortis Healthcare that was seeing a sharp up move in today's trading session. Right now, it's actually cooled off from those opening highs. Moving on, you have Jubilant Pharmova. That particular counter saw 1.3% equity block deal earlier in the trading session. On back of that, that particular counter is in focus. You have Centrum Capital. The company's board has approved transfer of entire business to its two subsidiaries. That's Centrum Financial Services and Centrum Microcredit to a proposed step-down subsidiary, which is supposed to be the planned small finance bank via a slump sale. So on back of that, you have Centrum Capital that is holding on to gains of over 7% in trade. Adani Ports, government of Andhra Pradesh has approved its proposed acquisition of 10.4% stake in Gangavaram Port. The consideration for proposed acquisition is about 645 crore rupees. So on back of that, you have Adani Ports up about 2% in trade. Tattva Chintan, recently listed company, there is a news flow, a negative one, and that is CFO has actually resigned. So on back of that, you have Tattva Chintan that is in our focus in today's trading session. Apart from that, you have Gillette India, you have Bajaj Electricals, and also you have the Bajaj Twins, like you mentioned, as Bajaj Finance and Finserv, that will be on our radar today, Alex. So what's the news flow actually supporting? We saw a sharp rally come across for Bajaj Finance as well as particularly Bajaj Finserv in yesterday's trading session.
Absolutely, Cheryl, and you know, every time somebody tries to draw a line and say that this is where Bajaj Finserv, Bajaj Finance should be, they tend to introduce something. Bajaj Finserv will announce something more. There's another business line that is activated that just gets the street encouraged and enthused about the stock yet again. Look at the year-to-date chart for Bajaj Finserv, gaining as much as 80%, and a large chunk of those gains coming in just the last 3 months. We've got Gaurang Shah as well as Kunal Bothra joining in just to put a little bit more perspective on this. And I'm going to go to Gaurang first on the fundamentals. Gaurang, a colleague of ours was just talking about this yesterday. You have Bajaj Pay, which is on the cards. You have this new mutual fund that they've gotten SEBI approval for. It's a good business, or one business after the other is starting up. Where do you draw the line and how do you value these companies? Because it seems like the upside is still there at this point. A lot of people seem to think so.
Well, thank you, Alex, and morning to all of you also. I just want to go back in history and not very far back. As far as both these Bajaj Twins are concerned, and my highlight will be more on Bajaj Finance. And I think either Kunal, you or Cheryl might have access to that chart. Not too long ago, that is in end of March 2020 and beginning of April 2020, both these stocks touched lifetime lows, if I'm not mistaken, or reasonably lower levels, especially Bajaj Finance. I think it was at sub 2000 levels, 1950 or 1980. And within a span of maybe about 15 or 16 months, see the kind of wealth both these companies have generated and created. And that is all thanks to, first of all, management capability and capacities. Second is, of course, diversified business and products that they have. And third is the geographical reach in terms of not only being present in metros and tier 2 cities, but more importantly, the business that they have spread as far as semi-urban and rural India is concerned. Now, there is no rocket science, Alex, that given the numbers post first quarter this financial year, if I'm not mistaken, you saw both these stocks correct. But after that, the management commentary in terms of the business outlook and the growth potential lies ahead. And of course, diversifying into newer areas, like you were just rightly mentioning, into AMC business. One important thing that I want to draw over here is the numbers for the mutual fund that we saw for the month gone by. And it was, extraordinarily heartwarming. And our sense at Geojit, Alex, is as more and more people become part of mainstream investment in terms of, equity market via mutual fund SIP. And if the number that we have to reflect upon vis-a-vis the population that we have and the number of people who invest in equity markets or in mutual fund is lower single digit. Now, if I have to extrapolate this to just about another 2 or 3%, then just imagine the kind of business opportunity that AMCs have. More importantly, of course, ethics should be in place. And there is no doubt that with the kind of management pedigree and credibility, I think you will definitely see both these companies grow to a great extent. Purely on fallback of business, strong fundamentals and opportunities that lie. So as a disclosure, both these companies are fundamentally extremely strong. Given the run-up, my advice would be that dips should be used to accumulate both these stocks.
Well, I use dips to accumulate both of these counters. That's on Bajaj Finance and Bajaj Finserv. That's Gaurang's view. Kunal, what's your view on both of these counters, Bajaj Finance and Finserv?
Well, good morning. First of all, Cheryl, Alex, as well as Gaurang and everyone. No different than what Gaurang enumerated. I think he's, explained it quite well that, whether you look at it over the span of the last 14-15 months, that there was a huge correction for, these stocks, and, enumerated charts for both of these names, Bajaj Finance and Finserv, and they're like mirror image of, each other, trying to, move in a very similar kind of a price trajectory, and both these stocks have done exceptionally well. Now, whether you look at it in the span of the last 14-15 months or you look at it over the span of the last decade, as well, for both these stocks, they've done, just exceptional. So I think one of the lessons which, investors and long-term traders who typically learn from these kind of names is that when you are talking about quality names and quality stocks, and if they go through any kind of a severe correction or a sharp correction, those become, opportunities where you don't, become more circumspect around the businesses or around these kind of stocks, but those becomes classical entry points in case if you've missed out, or good averaging opportunities as well, depending on the buying price of each investor or trader. So I think in that sense, both these stocks look exceptional from a longer term perspective, and I think you should use classical corrections which happens along the way. A 5% correction, for example, could be a good point where you can maybe look at some sort of short term increase in positions, but a correction of anywhere closer to 20-25%, if it happens along the way, should be taken as good averaging opportunities where you can probably investors can look at averaging in some higher chunks of volume. So I believe that these are good stocks which should be part of your long-term portfolio, but a buy on dips could be a much better approach into these names.
Consensus view from both of our experts, buy on dips is a strategy that you need to use for Bajaj Finance as well as Bajaj Finserv. On that note, we'll slip into a break in this edition of Buy Now, Sell Now. But stay tuned, lots more lined up for you after this break, especially the query segment, so don't go anywhere.